So, Zach, thank you so much for joining and taking time out of your busy schedule to join the Modern CFO Show podcast. I just wondered if you can give us a bit of a brief overview of your journey. Some of the amazing things that you guys are doing at eLuma at the moment.
I've been my journey's taken me to a lot of different places, various tech, SaaS, sports, education companies, and it's all been great. The thing I love about finance and accounting is every company needs a finance person, and so you can be a finance person and be in any industry. And while you're there, you can be building your skill set that can apply to any other company as well. So I've had the privilege to be at a handful of companies, a semiconductor company, went from there to a mobile device management software company called Wavelink. We were acquired by a company called Landesk. From there, I moved to a dental practice management software company called Curve Dental. And then from there, moved to an edtech SaaS company called Mastery Connect.
Hmm.
And I'm an avid basketball fan. I've always been a huge Utah Jazz fan and got the opportunity to be at the Utah Jazz.
Wow.
And from there, a skills development company called Degreed. And then to where I'm currently at is eLuma. And at eLuma, we provide teletherapy to kindergarten through 12th grade in the form of speech, occupational, uh, physical, and mental health therapies. And we have a big network of clinicians that are licensed and credentialed within various states, and we partner them with the schools and the districts based upon their needs.
Okay.
So my role is CFO, and I have a team of 5 people, and we handle the accounting, we handle the HR, and systems operations of the business. Um, so yeah, that's my journey, but I've been able to hold various roles starting from budget accountant to um, financial analyst, senior financial analyst, controller at a handful of different companies,
Hmm.
then to a director of finance, VP of FP&A, and now CFO.
Okay, nice. Well, it'd be great to touch upon some of the different roles that you've done a little bit later to give a bit of
Yeah.
an insight on those. But obviously, just as you mentioned, like, you've worked at some very large and household name companies in your career, giant sports company, software, medical education. Question I wanted to ask is, how do you adapt quickly to a new industry when you joining as a CFO? What's on your priority list when you step in the door to a new industry that you've never been in before?
Yeah, definitely. Before I start at a company, I dive in through Google searching, researching about that industry just to gather as much as I know or as I can. I research competition. I try to research what's the latest trends and bring as much as I can to the company before I start.
Right.
And then as soon as I start, I want to meet with all the stakeholders at the company. So that involves, my boss, whether it's the CEO or whoever it is, the investors, whether it's VC or private equity firm, and my peers, and then anybody at the company that really anybody, I want to talk with them and get their insight and their knowledge and their wisdom on the business, the industry, and then from their perspective, where can the finance function really make the biggest impact for the business? So
Right.
that's where I try to gather that is just like in the first week of starting at a company. Um, and then from there, I build a 30, 60, 90-day plan on, where are the gaps? How can we uh, fill those gaps through better support, better partnership, better insight? Our systems broken? Can we fix those systems? And we just really hit the ground running.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you want to get everyone in a room, make sure you know what everyone wants from the business, make sure everything's aligned, and then you can do that 90-day plan to make a big impact when you join.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
definitely.
Makes sense. So, just off the back of that, how do you make sure that your goals are aligned to the company's mission, and then maintain that effective communication with the CEO? Because obviously things change over time. So, is there any way that you make sure that you keep that communication clear so everyone knows what's expected of the business and how to then grow?
Definitely. So at eLuma, we have a 6 month objectives and planning exercise that we do. It starts with the executive level and then our expanded leadership team, just identifying the areas where we can add value to the company. And so we do a 6 month objectives exercise and we set our goals aligned with those objectives. And then every month as a company, we review our progress towards those objectives. And
Right.
each team within the company, we do our own playbook that aligns with those objectives every 6 months. So
Right.
um, progress, and then as a company every month, and then every 6 months we're planning for the next 6 months. Um, And then as far as meeting with the CEO, we have, my boss is the CEO. We meet weekly, and there's always emerging opportunities and areas to dive into. And so it's important to really communicate clearly of, how does this take priority over the objectives that we've set? And if nothing can be moved and we got another big emerging opportunity, then it's important to be good at delegating to help your team, up level so they can um, handle those opportunities as they come.
Mm.
So uh, it's fun. It's fun, and I love being part of a dynamic atmosphere where things are always coming, and yeah, it's really important to really build your team up to handle the new waves that will be coming in.
No, that 100% that makes sense. Like in your, a little bit off topic, but in your team of five, does everyone have set tasks, or is a team dynamic enough where you can go to one person for something that may not necessarily be in their remit, but everyone can do a bit of everything, or are those five people set in their specific fields and then they're a master of that? How do you kind of run your team?
Yeah, we're a small company, so
Okay.
we have to have that flexibility. Everybody has their lists of responsibilities and deadlines and tasks that they got to do on a
Mm.
daily, weekly, recurring basis. But they also, each one of them recognizes that there's going to be something that comes in where we're going to have to ask them to kind of step outside of that recurring task process. And so I've got a great team of people that they're willing to dive in, and even if they haven't done it before, they're willing to build their skill set, and they know that it will help them in their career to dive in.
Yeah.
So I that those are the people I love to have on my team.
100%. I think, to be honest, that's the feedback that I've been getting, and so far is that the CFO role has definitely changed over the years. Like it's not just finance, it's now operations, it's now HR, and I think a lot of people that are maybe just starting in finance or are kind of in that midpoint in their career, they're starting to get so much more experience from doing some HR work and some operations work, and ultimately it's arguable, but it can only help their career as well, right? To get involved in these kind of tasks. So
Yeah, definitely. Don't say no to opportunities for learning and skill development. Just dive in and you'll be glad you did.
that's it. I mean, do you have any you know, advice on how you can communicate with your team as effectively as you possibly can? So when someone comes to you and asks for advice, how you can make sure that you get the most out of them and to help them as best as possibly can.
Yeah, in a CFO role, sometimes people may feel like if they gotta go to a CFO, like it's visiting the dentist or something like that, like it's a painful experience. And I try to make it so it's not painful. So I really try to be approachable, and part of being approachable, I have I have a little whiteboard I keep in front of me of certain acronyms to help me remember how to be as a leader. And my acronym, I have KPI, which stands for me, to be kind, be present, and be inspiring. So
Mm.
whenever somebody is visiting me, and a lot of times as a CFO, people visit you, and it's usually like bad news that they got to bring up.
Yeah, it's true. Like, there's always like someone that's overspent on budget or something that's happened, but it's nice when it's not that.
Yeah. So like a CFO's day could be a day full of those meetings, like just back to back, like I've got an issue, I've got this, I got that. And they're coming to you because they recognize that you're going to be able to help them figure it out, right?
Mm,
And so as part of being kind is different than friendly. So like you can be clear, and I think Brene Brown said being clear is kind. And so part of being kind is just being very clear and transparent with them on here's how the business is, help them with business acumen and help them to be able to figure out the solution ideally on their own and upskill them so that they can be empowered to handle those types of situations later.
mm,
Being present, it takes energy, but you got to be able to listen with the intent to understand. So a CFO usually has like 10 different things going on all at the same time. You got to like hone in on this person and really understand what they're saying, and so that you can give them the best feedback possible.
mm,
And then the other part is inspiring. I just try to be positive as much as I can in all my interactions. Um, and that helps the person. Everybody's a person. You don't know what they're going through and
mm,
their home life and everything. And so you want to have a good positive work environment where people enjoy working with each other. And so um, those are things I try to keep in front of me as a CFO, and I feel like it's really helped me to build good relationships of trust with people across the organization, and they can see me as a good resource to help us collectively achieve our goals of the company.
that's it. I mean, I think that's the difficult part about being a leader sometimes is that ultimately we create the culture of what that company is like. People talk about good culture, bad culture, and it always comes down to the leaders of the organization that create that. And I think it's difficult to be friends and be friendly with everyone, get the most out of them as well. It's like different plates that you have to balance. But ideally, if you can create a happy environment for your colleagues, ultimately that's when the best work comes out.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
100%.
The other question I was going to ask is like you mentioned that obviously you've had a lot of different roles, MBA in accounting, and where you are now. What's some of the best routes that you think that finance professionals in 2024 can take to become a CFO? Do you think now that you have to be a controller first, go through FP&A? Is there a way you can fast track? And what's your opinion on some of the best routes that you can go down to get the most experience as well?
Yeah, I there's many different paths that you can take. And I feel what's most critical is the mindset and approach that you have to your work. Whether you're an accountant or an analyst, you can have a path to CFO, but I feel like you've got to have grit. You've got to be able to observe things around you and being willing to dive in to areas that most people won't,
Mm,
right? And with that grit, that determination, and a willingness to partner with others around you, you'll be able to accelerate in your career quickly.
mm,
As far as roles go, though, I have found that um, you do need a balance of accounting and FP&A to really help you be a good CFO. And one of the roles within corporate finance that has both of those, I found, is a controller. usually at a smaller business,
Right.
because those smaller businesses, they don't have the luxury of having a separate FP&A team and an accounting team. The
Mm,
controller is kind of asked to be that middle person and do both sides of that.
right.
And so I really loved my experience as a controller, doing both of those functions. My passion is more on the FP&A, but in my role as controller, it also kept me really up to date on all the latest accounting technical guidances and handling audits and all those things. So if people come to me like, how can I get to CFO? As far as like roles go, I'd say a controller is a really good way to get to a CFO position. But even more important than that, it's your mindset and your determination to really go above and beyond what is even in your job description.
That makes sense. So ultimately, I guess the roles have an impact, but more importantly, it's the person themselves, how willing they are to go and get it done and push boundaries, basically.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yep.
100%. I think that's um the best advice I guess you can give someone, right? It's
Mhm.
all down to them at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Just moving on quickly. There's no way we couldn't have this podcast and this call without asking about a little bit about your experience with the Utah Jazz, right? Because
Yeah, sure.
an amazing sports team. You're a big fan yourself. How was it being a fan, then getting to join the company that you've looked up to your whole life? And then being in those boardrooms, like just personally, I'm really interested in your experience there as a fan to then joining the company.
Yeah, it was amazing. I loved being at the Utah Jazz. There were so many things that I wanted to just dive in from day one, because it just not even because of work. It's just like I just want to know all these things as a diehard Utah Jazz fan.
Mm,
And it was great. So Utah Jazz was owned by the Larry H. Miller Group, that
okay.
owned various sports and entertainment entities.
Hmm.
And so not only was I controller of the Utah Jazz, but also a sports radio station, the Jazz development team, which was the Stars.
Oh wow.
We also had a cycling tour, be the finance person for that. And then we also started, while I was there, a gaming team, which I didn't even know was a thing.
All
But
right.
EA
Interesting.
Sports, yeah, so EA Sports partnered with the NBA to develop like actual gaming teams. So we would recruit players, like gamers, bring them
Right.
to Utah, and they would actually play basketball online
Right.
against each other. So I got to be in the draft room for that, and establish the budget
Nice.
for that. And also, while I was there, we put in our bid to be the host of the All-Star festivities, which the last time that happened was like 30 years ago. So I got to be on a
Right.
small committee of four to uh, to draft that budget and that bid to the committee, and we got approved, and so that was really exciting. What was interesting about all this is like a lot of these things, because you're such a big public known entity, it actually puts more pressure upon you to be more
Mm,
confidential. You can't share things. um like it was so hard for me. I could not share with anybody about the All-Star thing,
of
even though
course.
I knew
Yeah.
about it for a few years before it actually happened.
Right.
And so while I was gathering all this information, it was really exciting for me. It was also like just made it that much harder for me to not be able to like tell my friends like, oh yeah, you should look for this or that. I had to keep it quiet, and which it was a good skill building set of, maintaining confidentiality. And um but yeah, it was fun. Like I there were a handful of times got to interact with the players. It wasn't very common. We tried to keep it very separate, like office and player
Of
environment.
course.
But I did get to partner with the basketball operations side of things for their budgeting and finance. And so the VP of operations, she gave me access probably more than most people at
Right.
the company to the players, which was fun. So my kids got to interact with, Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, and they're really nice. And so
Wow.
it was a great experience. I thought I would love, like, I thought that was my life. That was gonna be my where I'd be for life.
Of course,
And
yeah.
all my friends, they're like, oh yeah, that is like that's your dream job
A
right
dream.
there. And
I
that's
can
what I
see it.
thought. Yeah. And well, I loved it. I loved the people. Um, I did have a good learning there where my passion for work actually is more on the FP&A side of things than the accounting side of things. An
Okay.
interesting thing with an MBA team is an MBA team will go through 3 audits every year, and it's by 3 different groups. So you have the players union that will
Hmm.
do their own audit to make sure they're getting their fair share of the revenue.
Right.
Um, you have the MBA that's doing their own audit,
Hmm.
and they have their own book of guidance on how that gets accounted for.
Right.
And then we have our own public, Big Four audit just going on our company.
Of
And I was in
course.
charge of all 3 of those at the time.
Oh,
So
wow.
so about 9 months out of my year was under an audit of some sort. So um and while audits are important, they're not like my biggest passion. It's just like
I
I'm
can
just
imagine that.
yeah. And so I be ever leaving the Jazz, but when an opportunity came to be a VP of FP&A at a fast growing tech company and really started from the ground up,
Mm.
it just really resonated for me. Like this is my next step. And so I went to Degreed, and we grew really fast from I think I was like the 100th employee, and we grew to over 600 by the time I
Wow.
left. And had a couple acquisitions and built their financial model and built the team from me to a group of 5 under me under FP&A. It was a really great experience and nothing that I regret at all. So
Mm.
yeah, life will, your career will take you on paths that you just don't expect. I thought I'd be at the Jazz for life. So
Well,
yeah,
this is it. It's like just like you said at the start of the call, in order to be a CFO, you have to have that grit, that willingness to learn. And like you said, a lot of people would have stayed comfortable, I guess, in that dream job, but you decided to take the risk, grow even further, use that knowledge that you had to move forward, and ultimately that's why you're the CFO. You have to grow in these
yeah,
things. But yeah,
definitely.
I think I'm definitely in the wrong career after that explanation of your time at the Jazz. I'm very jealous, to say the least. Oh, that it sounds like you had an amazing time.
It was great. Definitely. Yeah,
Nice. Well, I'm just wondering, just quickly, if you can just share one. Well, this is a bit of a quick fire round, but if you can share one internet resource or a bit of software that you use to increase your productivity, or just something that you enjoy using in your day to day that you can share with the audience.
for sure. Um, for my team, I would say um, Ramp
Okay.
for expense reporting, bill payments, corporate cards has been a huge blessing to our company. Before that, we were just doing like paper transaction type stuff, and along with Expensify. But Ramp brought them all together into one for
Right.
us, and for us, it's free.
Oh, nice.
And so for like my team's productivity, Ramp has been an amazing software for us. Personally, um, I is I like to have something that's kind of in the flow of my work. I've tried things like Asana and Trello and other productivity softwares.
Hmm.
We're a Google shop at eLuma,
Right.
And so I found what has stuck the most for me within my Gmail and having that organized really well.
Right.
Tying it to my calendar has been really helpful for me. Um, as far as my learning goes, lately I've been utilizing ChatGPT um, for learning SQL queries because
Okay.
I've been having to develop that, and I love the interactive nature of like, okay, I've got a table, and I need to merge and append these things, and ChatGPT can really handle that type of interaction well. So it's
Right.
helped me to learn SQL querying a lot faster than I would in other areas.
Nice. Okay, yeah, 100%. I think it's nice to get that instant feedback that you get as well. It becomes almost addicting at times,
Yeah,
I
it
must
is
say.
for sure.
What's the best piece of business advice that you've ever received that you can share?
Yeah, I feel that the best advice I got was actually before I jumped into accounting. It was while I was at school trying to figure out which area I should go. I
Mm.
love helping people, and I was actually leaning in the area of being a therapist of some sort to
Oh
help
wow.
people. I
Mm.
reached out to a mentor, and he knew how much I just naturally understood numbers and business and certain things. So I said, Zach, you can help people in many ways in business.
Mm.
As a leader, you can help mentor and coach. There will be people who come to you with their personal problems, and
Mm.
there's ways that you can help them and inspire them and still be in business. And so that advice I took, and I ran with it, and I found it to be very true. So um, it's I think that's the best business advice I've gotten. And so I try to remember that again, like in interaction with my team and others, like this is an opportunity for me to help a person, not just trying to figure out a solution at our company, but hey, maybe they're having a bad day and they just need a friendly person to be around, and I can be that person. So
Nice. That is very, very kind of you. Is- what is one parting piece of advice that you'd give for future CFOs? It's 2024, things are changing. What's just a bit of advice that you can give this year for some CFOs?
yeah, this would be for people early in their career, but it would be willing to do what others won't, and that will unlock doors for you to be able to do what others can't later on.
Nice.
And so, and it just goes to being willing to. I had an experience early in my career that really helped me in my career is um, I was a new financial analyst at a software company. The company was having a hard time with like collections,
Okay.
and the person that was doing collections had a couple of other responsibilities, but she wasn't really, it was something she just didn't want to do. But at the same time, I'm seeing the numbers of collections, and I'm like, I feel like we can do this better.
Right.
And um, anyway, I asked if I could just take that. And she was like, oh, please, please do. And rather than just seeing it as like um, a responsibility that I just kind of like, ugh, collections, or
Mm.
I would get excited about it. So I'm like, okay, how can I automate letters out to customers, and how can I report and track on our progress with the collections, and through, I think, just again through that mindset of like, okay, this is an opportunity for us, and um, it really helped us to optimize our collections. We got
Mm.
our aging report cleaned up. The company, spotlighted it a handful of times as a big success for the company, and it was just something that others weren't really willing to.
Get
do at
stuck
the
in.
time. But it kind of helped to spotlight efforts and allow and build confidence in what I could do to help me in other parts of my career.
So what would have been a tedious task for someone else? You took head on, enjoyed it, and then showcased your skills and took advantage of the opportunity, basically.
Yep,
Yeah.
100%.
Nice. Well, look, I think that pretty much wraps up the show. Thank you so much for joining. I've enjoyed the conversation. Hopefully, the viewers would have learned a lot as well. Just in terms of eLuma, if anyone's interested in the discussions that we've spoken about, and want to reach out to you and what eLuma can do, can you provide your contact details and any way that they can reach out to you?
Yeah, definitely on LinkedIn. You can find me, Zac Makin. eLuma.com is our website.
Mhm.
And anybody looking for career advice, I'm happy to just have a chat. And so reach out to me through LinkedIn.
That sounds like a plan. I'll put your details on there as well. Zac, thank you so much for joining and do enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you so much.
All right, you too.
That's it.
Thanks, Zach. Take care.